Return of the Mount Hua Sect, Chapter 228. Who keeps a dragon in their pond? Chongmyung licked his lips and looked at the bottle. Sadly, although Tangbo was someone who spoke nonsense when it came to eating food, he never lied, so the chances of his words being true were pretty high. There is absolutely nothing wrong with the theory. Tangbo had mentioned that there had already been a case of internal qi massively rising successfully after the consumption of the poison. Of course, he had also said that the person couldn't handle the poison qi within his body and had died eventually. The key is whether I can purify it after taking in the poison qi. Basically, the way one normally dealt with poison qi or poison within the body was to discharge it out of the body. They would move it to a specific corner of the body through which they would be able to release it outside later. Even if it gets purified, the poison has to be discharged. People generally tended to not absorb something like poison into their bodies after all. So how could he do something crazy like taking in poison qi? But Tangbo had told him to take the drink. He had told him how to handle the poison qi within the body and purify the qi after it was done. He had specified that rather than releasing it outside, he had to purify it within him. It'll work. It has to work. Chongmyung shook his head. I'm not joking. I think it is worth trying, especially for you, Hyung. Isn't the biggest characteristics of Taoist purifying things? It is impossible for us Tang people to do so since we are already used to having poison within our bodies. But if someone like you do it, you can handle the qi and purify it without releasing it outside, right? You can even break the head of the heavenly demon. And what if I die? That would be unfortunate, but it would be a valuable sacrifice. Of course, Tangbo got hit after that. The qi of a Taoist. Chongmyung didn't feel good. All the conditions required for him to do this had been met. He had the drink in front of him. He knew that by ingesting it, the qi in his body would be increased. Along with that, he would even gain resistance to poison. And Chongmyung's qi. He had already confirmed after practicing in the Tang family that in his life, his qi was a lot better than the poisons used by the Tang family. This was something that Chongmyung wouldn't attempt in the past. In other words, no one would even dare to do this. And if there was anyone that could do it, with pure qi better than what it was in the past, and the ability to operate that qi better than the plum blossom sword saint of the past, there was only Chongmyung. If other people tried to do it, they would die the moment they put the poison into their mouths. Chongmyung finally grabbed the 2 pills. Do I need to take it? If not, just throw it away. Although the only reason he was going to do it now was because of the snake bastard, he had been thinking about this for a long time. So he even got this drink from the Tang family. But previously, he wasn't able to make his mind up and take them. But now, he had the perfect chance. I'd rather die than go through with this shit. Chongmyung boldly stretched out his hand and picked up the soul vitality pill and the heavenly poison pill. Without any delay, he put both pills into his mouth. As soon as the pills entered his mouth, they melted in an instant and went down his throat. His stomach felt hot, but then, for a moment, the sense of heat stopped. Was that it? Even Chongmyung was worried at his body's lack of reaction. He had eaten 2 pills. Maybe he needed a couple more of the soul vitality pills. Maybe another few, and then there would be... Chongmyung frowned. Since when did I turn into a coward? It is said that when a person grows old, they become cowards. But I'm young though. What can I be afraid of when I'm young? In any case, the number of soul vitality pills we have is limited. When he first had it, he felt refreshed, but that was all. The soul vitality pill didn't have the effect of multiplying the qi within the body. If that was possible, wouldn't all the Shaolin sect disciples be the greatest disciples of the world? Moreover, in exchange for creating the clear and pure qi, didn't Chongmyung have to try again and again to generate a very small amount after that? In the end, the soul vitality pill was a solution for Mount Hua, rather than for Chongmyung. He had to do something if he didn't want to spend years of his time just waiting for his pure ki to normally generate. Having made his decision, he sat cross-legged. First, he had to build a solid foundation. Quack! There was the sound of water running through his body. The pills, which had now melted in his stomach, were creating a river of ki which flowed through his body. I shouldn't absorb this. It isn't the ki which was important now. This ki had to be conserved so that it can act as a medium to help him absorb the ki of the tears of beauty and protect his body from its poison. I have to gather it in my danjeon. Chongmyung used the ki of the 2 pills to surround his danjeon and opened his eyes. Opening your eyes in the middle of cultivating ki would be impossible for others. This was possible for Chongmyung only because he was already past the normal level. Okay. Chongmyung groaned and grabbed the bottle in front of him. If I die, Tangbo, you are dead. You are already dead, but I'll come to kill you again. I'll make sure that even the dead can die again. Then, he gulped the drink down and closed his eyes. It seems fine. The tears of beauty, which had flowed into his stomach, didn't move or cause any reactions. There was only a faint feeling of something flowing. Here it comes. Chongmyung was terrified and raised his ki. The poison ki from the liquid was spreading through his body very quickly. Even Chongmyung was scared at its pace. This! When he was fighting Tangbo or other strong people in his previous life that used poison, the only poison which had ever made its way to him was either from long-range attacks or from the weapons. And how strong were they? At best, they would have been 100th or even 1,000th of the amount the bottle had. That alone would have been enough to kill him. But since he had drunk the entire poison directly, without even diluting it, it was natural that he was having a hard time. Was it too much? Maybe I should have taken half. Why is it that regardless of whether it is alcohol or poison, I always gulp it down in one shot? Sahyung, please fix my habit. The poison ki was quickly spreading through his body. Chongmyung was so terrified that he raised his ki to protect his danjeon. I have to be careful. I have to purify it and absorb it. It isn't about purifying and releasing. He clenched his teeth and began to circulate his ki. His next step would be to make sure he didn't release the poison outside. What kind of poison is this? It was overflowing. It was like pouring poisoned water into a jar filled with normal water. The poison inside just kept multiplying. It felt like he was going to explode. Chongmyung opened his eyes. Startled, he closed them again tightly. What did I see? Not believing what he had seen, Chongmyung opened his eyes to confirm it. He didn't see it wrong. His body, which was now dyed black, was starting to swell. A black pig! The clothes he was wearing couldn't handle his swelling body and was tearing up here and there. He quickly closed his eyes again and focused. If this continued to happen, his body would explode and he would die before he could recover his internal strength. Hurry up! The ki flowing through him was starting to get hot. The pure ki inside Chongmyung's danjeon began to devour and purify the poison ki that surrounded it. The momentum of the events happening inside Chongmyung's body was so great that it was like a dam had exploded. However, the poison ki didn't seem to decrease. Maybe the poison ki had realized that the other parts of Chongmyung's body were untouched, or it had realized that the poison ki near the danjeon was vanishing. So it rushed to the danjeon all at once. I need to stop it! The ki of the heavenly poison pill and the soul vitality pill, which was around his danjeon, blocked the poison ki. Kang! Bang! Kwang! It felt like his body was imploding from the inside. He made sure to do his best to stay focused and began to purify the poison ki into pure ki and channeled it back into his danjeon. Woom! Unable to withstand the recoil of his body swelling up so suddenly, the blood vessels in Chongmyung's body began to burst eventually. His nose and mouth began to gush out blood. and the blood that dripped down onto the floor made sizzling noises. Even though he was purifying the key, there was no end to the poison key. Let's see if you win or I win. Chongmyung endured the pain and began to try harder. The anxious eyes of the disciples of Mount Hua who were in front of the room had changed expressions. Don't you feel something? I suddenly feel weird. Something seems wrong. Feeling troubled, Jogul opened his mouth. Should we take a look? Huh? He told us not to come in, but didn't tell us not to look, right? Baekchun smiled brightly and nodded his head. A great loophole. You have grown so much. It is all thanks to Sasuk. Right. It is up to you to handle it, and there is no need for me to stop you. Go ahead and do it. But the two stayed silent for a while without moving, and Jogul said, Sasuk, your personality has changed a lot too. Although he hated hearing that, Baekchun calmly accepted the words of his sajil. The pot is calling the kettle black. While anyone is bound to be tainted when they are next to Chongmyung, your personality will change too. I am glad to know that, but don't waste time and check it. Yes, Jogul mumbled as he walked to the room of Chongmyung. He won't hear me, right? Chongmyung would have definitely noticed that they were approaching the room. However, since there had been no shouts coming from the room, he must have been busy doing something else. What the hell is he doing for him to be so lost? Jogul moved forward and made a hole in the window with his finger. It wouldn't have shown good manners for them to make a hole in the door of the Beast Palace, but doing so to a window seemed a lot better to Jogul. He took a deep breath and began to use his finger. Jogul, who had been looking into the room, quickly turned back and smiled. Sasuk, what is it? What is that brat doing? I have no idea what he is doing. Huh? But it seems like we need to escape. Huh? Faster! Huh? Jogul began to run as soon as he said that, and the rest of them began to run after him. Baekchun had already passed Jogul and asked as he looked back, But what are we running from? That room? Or the Beast Palace? I don't know. Just run. No. Tell me what we are even running. It was then. Baekchun turned around. No! The entire palace that contained Chongmyung's room began to shake. Baekchun's face had turned pale as he looked at the side of the palace, trembling. That madman! This is the beast! Kwang! Before he could finish, an explosion occurred. The entire side of the palace shattered. What? That... Forgetting to run away, they all stopped and looked back at the scene. They all saw a black sphere. There was a gigantic black vortex in front of them. It seemed appropriate to call it an evil dragon rising into the sky endlessly. Kwang! 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 The wind the vortex created had a momentum that seemed to absorb everything in the world. What in the world did he do in the room for this to happen? Seriously. The color of this black vortex then began to change gradually. As if it was releasing its force on the world, the black vortex first turned gray, and then became a pure white light, and finally turned transparent. However, the strong winds around it didn't die in the slightest. No, it was turning faster and more ferocious. Huh? It felt like it would suck in everything, and at one point, even Jogul's body began to float up in the air. Jogul! The disciples hurriedly grabbed Jogul's ankles and pulled him to the ground. But the body of Jogul, which was being pulled by the wind, fluttered like a paper doll. Damn it! Chongmyung, you bastard! Please stop doing such things! That was the only thing he could think of. Even though he didn't know if Chongmyung could hear his words. The beasts around the palace that had jumped out in shock couldn't handle the force from the vortex and got sucked into it. Baekchun ended up looking up and yelled, Someone, stop that bastard! Who? Who can stop that bastard, Sasuke? Finally, the figure of Chungmyeong could be seen. He had risen into the air with his legs crossed, and as if he was cultivating ki, he looked very serene and calm. He looked so fucking calm that the disciples wanted to punch him in the face. Clench. Crash. To make matters worse, the roofs of the nearby buildings were being torn off. At this point, the entire palace would turn into a mess if this was allowed to continue. Kwang! A terrifying ki exploded in all directions with the sound of a huge explosion. Ya, you bastard! The disciples of Mount Hua got caught in the storm of ki and were all thrown into the air. Dud, bang, bang, bang. The disciples of Mount Hua, who got whipped by the wind, groaned. All of a sudden, the vortex that had been busy trying to absorb things into it was now releasing ki into the world, as if it was trying to blow the entire world away. Well, nothing was happening except for buildings being shattered and beasts running away in fear. This is bad. The disciples of Mount Hua were in shock as they saw the ruined surroundings. It was then, step, step, step. A man slowly walked through the floating dust. Chungmyeong, who seemed to be the happiest person in the world right now, smiled as he saw the disciples of Mount Hua. Now, let's go take down that snake bastard. It looks like we're the ones who are going to be taken down, you bastard. Please do things in fucking moderation.